Once upon a time, not too long ago, actually tonight, in a land far, away known as Texas, two people went at each other to become governor. Technically, there's a third person, but she'll probably be knocked out anyway. They're all trying to be governor, but they do have to face a Democratic candidate. Confused yet? Here to sort this all out with us is Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement. Mr. Miller, thank you for joining us from Nederland, Texas. How are things going with the race when it comes to the primary? The two major candidates, Kay Bailey Hutchinson and Rick Perry, going at each other. How are things progressing so far tonight?
Well, I'll tell you, it was in your setup for the piece, you pretty much dismissed the third candidate that is in this primary race, and I think that's quite premature. I mean, we are looking at a viable candidate in Deborah Medina that is actually polling at one point neck and neck with Kay Bailey Hutchinson, a sitting U.S. senator. So to count this as just a two-person race, I think is definitely not paying attention to the current political climate.
Let me go ahead and make a clarification. There is Deborah Medina who is really chomping at the bit with Kay Bailey Hutchinson and Rick Perry, but most assessments say that it'll either be Kay Bailey Hutchinson or Rick Perry who are going to duke it out from here on out. Is that a correct assessment in your opinion? I'm guessing not.
Well, we're seeing that data come out from, of course, the major media news sources. But, one of the things that we're seeing in this political climate with the resurgence of the Tea Parties and the fact that the issues that our organization talks about, which are nullification, interposition, and secession, we're seeing those as mainstream political debates. And you saw a race recently where a candidate who was fifth in a five-person race 1 week out from the polls actually won the race. So we're dealing in a political climate that really is anybody's guess. But I will tell you that Deborah Medina has built a tremendous grassroots organization and is challenging the powers that be with a message that really cuts across, is that we want fiscal conservatism and we want the government off of our backs.
Okay. At this point, what are the Texas news outlets, what are the newspapers, the TV stations saying about the race so far? Have they given you an update on how things are going between the three candidates, as you mentioned?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're hearing a lot of the same. I mean, it does not look like that Rick Perry is going to come out of this without having to go through a runoff. I think the real question in everyone's mind right now is whether or not Deborah Medina is going to pull second ahead of Kay Bailey Hutchinson in that runoff being between Perry or Hutchinson or Perry and Medina. So I think that really is the question that we all have right now, and it's got us down here on this wonderful Texas Independence Day on pins and needles.
Okay, if it does come to a runoff between the three people, what are we talking about from here on out? What's going to happen as far as the race goes from the Republican standpoint?
Well, we've seen the hypothetical matchups between Perry and Hutchinson and Perry and Medina in a fantasy runoff, if you want to call it that. The one thing that we do know coming out of these primaries is that whoever the Republican candidate is going to beat the Democratic candidate so far in the polls. Now, of course, there's a lot of race left, but I will tell you that the message that is being put out by at least Rick Perry and Deborah Medina is striking a chord with Texas voters, which is this angst toward the federal government. We want the federal government off of our backs, and those two candidates out of both parties are the ones that are really driving that message home.
And at this point, has there been any sort of, and I'm guessing it might be a little presumptuous to ask, but has there been any talk about maybe forming some sort of alliance between any of the Republican candidates?
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, of course, all of the candidates say that at the end of the day, they're going to link arms and sing Kumbaya, and ultimately they will be part of the same party. But I will tell you that there will not be a divide amongst the Republicans here in Texas, other than the fact that as long as the candidate that becomes the front runner, the one that is carrying the banner for the GOP in the general election, continues to carry the theme of fiscal responsibility and getting Washington, D.C. off of our backs.
Okay, Daniel Miller from the Texas Nationalist Movement, thank you so much for joining us from Nederland.